Hey guys, tonight we're stepping quietly, very quietly, into the flickering shadows of a Victorian bedroom. You're seated at a tiny wooden vanity, the sort with carved roses and a lopsided drawer, staring into a warped oval mirror that holds more secrets than reflections. A pair of gas lamps flicker softly beside you, casting golden pools on porcelain and powder. Somewhere downstairs, a clock ticks like it's trying not to wake anyone. Your hair is pinned, your corset already biting, and you have exactly 23 minutes before your housemaid barges in with your bedtime vinegar rinse. This isn't your typical evening, because tonight you're about to start a beauty ritual so complicated, so curious, and so absurdly delicate that honestly, you probably wouldn't survive it. The good news? You don't have to. You're just here to listen, drift, and enjoy the velvety weirdness of history. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this sleepy history reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You reach forward and lift the lid of your vanity box. Inside, a tiny silver spoon, a jar of cream the color of boiled cabbage, and a piece of cloth that still smells faintly of lavender from a sachet long since buried in your drawer. You begin with the spoon. No fingers, of course, not unless you want to ruin everything. Victorian women are nothing if not meticulous, and you, dear listener, are determined to play your part. Scoop, smear, dab. Always upward, never down. Down means gravity wins. The cream is cool and strangely alive. That's the snail. Or rather, what's left of it. This isn't your average garden guest. No, this slime was harvested, strained, boiled, and mixed with beeswax, rosewater, and just a touch of zinc oxide. You imagine some factory girl in Manchester gently wrangling snails with tweezers. Maybe she names them. Maybe she doesn't. Historians still argue whether snail mucin was widely used for skincare in Victorian England or merely rumored among desperate debutantes and French beauty journals. What's clear is that some women swore by it, and others, well, they swore at it. You glance at your reflection. Still pale. Still you. But now there's a faint sheen, like you've been lightly brushed with dew or perhaps kissed by a very delicate ghost. The kind that wears lace gloves and only haunts botanical gardens. There's a knock. Not a loud one, nothing is loud here, but the suggestion of a knuckle on wood. You call out softly and your maid enters. She carries a bowl of warm water, 2 cloths, and the particular expression of a woman who knows you'll ignore her if she tells you what time it is. She helps you rinse the cream, though you pretend you could have done it yourself. The water smells faintly of chamomile and boiled laundry. Not unpleasant. Not quite lovely either. You catch a glimpse of your hands in the mirror, still rough from the lemon you used to bleach your knuckles earlier. Your aunt told you men hate women with hands like field laborers. You have no plans to marry a man who inspects knuckles, but still, you keep scrubbing. After the rinse, you reach for your silence. No, not metaphorical silence. Actual silence. You train it like a muscle. Victorian women believe that too much talking ages you. That emotion leaves grooves in the skin. So tonight, like every night, you say nothing. Not even a sigh. You let your face rest like fine china on a shelf. Smooth, unmoving, expensive. It's a weird form of meditation, honestly. You stare at your unmoving reflection and imagine tomorrow's breakfast. Tepid tea, dry toast, and someone asking how you maintain such a glow. You'll answer vaguely, good breeding. And then immediately think of Snail's your maid. Bless her, tries not to laugh when she sees your expression, or lack thereof. She moves to brush your hair, 100 strokes, never 99. You feel each pull like a memory, slow and repetitive. The brush is boar-bristled, passed down from your grandmother, who used it to style her curls into terrifyingly rigid spirals. The glow begins to rise as your skin settles. No rouge tonight. You've sworn off it for now. Clogs the pores and makes you look like you've been caught in a light wind while lying. Instead, you'll rely on your silence, your snail mucin, and that perfect poise that says, I glow because I have secrets, and I'm not telling you any of them. Just before you slip into bed, you take a final look in the mirror. You tilt your head. A faint line at the corner of your mouth threatens to appear. You resist the urge to smile. Victory. Your room is quiet now. The candle is low, your bedsheets cool. Somewhere downstairs, that same clock ticks, softer now. You did your routine. You wore the silence like a veil. You applied the snail. And in a way, maybe you're glowing. Not from joy necessarily or health, but from effort. From ritual. From discipline that borders on absurdity. Sleep now. Don't move your face. Let the snail do the rest. You wake early, though the sun hasn't dared rise yet, and it's not because you're restless. It's the corset. Always the corset. It's not tight enough to strangle, but just enough to whisper, "Don't forget I'm here." You sit up carefully, like an eggshell trying not to crack, and your hair rustles against the linen. There's already a sheen on your cheek from last night's snail cream, still faintly dewy if you squint. Before your maid returns, you sneak one last look in the mirror. There it is again, that Victorian glow. More imagined than visible, but real enough in dim light. It's subtle, like a secret, and secrets are a currency you're learning to spend wisely. The morning routine is less romantic than the evening one. For starters, there are no snails, just cold water, a splash of rose water if you're lucky, and something disturbingly referred to as complexion vinegar. Stings a little, but that's how you know it's working. At least, that's what the Harper's Bazaar column said last spring. You towel your face with deliberate, dabbing motions. Never rub, never pull. You treat your skin like it's on loan from someone important, someone judgmental. Today, you're trying something new, a whisper of bat blood. You keep the bottle hidden behind your sewing basket, mostly because it looks like something you'd find in a villain's pantry. The label claims it promotes subdermal vivacity, which is just vague enough to sound legitimate. It smells like copper and regret. Historians still argue whether this so-called bat blood was actual animal product or just beetroot juice sold to women with too many shillings and not enough self-esteem. Either way, you dab it on your cheeks and lo and behold, you're radiant. Or, more accurately, flushed with the soft horror of what you just applied. You get dressed in stages. Chemise, corset, petticoat, bustle pad, gown. It's less getting dressed and more geological layering. By the time you're corseted into an acceptable shape, your waist has vanished but your cheekbones somehow look sharper. This is not coincidence. You glow harder when your organs are slightly compressed. There's a breakfast tray waiting. One boiled egg, toast, and a glass of tepid milk. You eat daintily, of course. No vigorous chewing. Victorian women glow from within, which apparently involves severe indigestion. You sip instead of gulp. You breathe from your chest, not your belly. Breathing too deeply implies exertion, which implies sweat, which implies pores, which implies, no thanks. Your mother stops by, just long enough to compliment your rested face and hint, once again, that your cousin Emily is engaged and glowing more than you. You nod sweetly and mentally plan to sabotage Emily's lemon juice stash later. Once she leaves, you sit by the window. Not too close. The sun is your enemy. But the indirect light? Perfect. It makes your skin look almost luminous, like you drink moonlight instead of tea. You pull out your notebook and jot down last night's experiment. Snail cream, 2 spoons, applied 8:45 p.m. silence maintained. Approximate 1 hour 17 minutes results. Minor sheen, 1 eyebrow twitch, no visible rash. You consider marketing your own line of creams one day. Maybe call it Mucus and Grace. Or Glow by Restraint. It's strange. This little performance of beauty. You'd think it would be exhausting. And it is, but it's also soothing. Every step has its place. Every potion has a promise. There's power in pretending it's all working. You remember your aunt once saying, "A proper lady glows from the inside, and never because she's in a hurry." You didn't understand it then. You do now. Slowness is currency. Stillness is elegance. Silence is beauty. And as the day begins, quietly, gently, you glow. Or at least you try to. You smooth your skirt. You lift your chin. You resist the urge to smile even though your cheek still smells faintly of bat. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You've heard it said more than once, usually by older women with tighter buns than yours, that a quiet woman is a glowing woman. It's not just a proverb, it's an entire philosophy. Victorian England adores silence. Silence is modest. Silence is graceful. And most importantly, silence prevents frown lines. You sit perfectly upright in the morning room, back straight against the embroidered settee. A book rests in your lap, moral essays for the disciplined mind, but you're not reading it. You're practicing. Practicing not moving your face. You've learned that even the act of reading can be dangerous if done with too much emotion. Surprise furrows the brow. Laughter creases the eyes. And horror? Well, horror simply has no place in a complexion that aspires to translucent serenity. So you read like a statue. You sip tea like a ghost. You breathe as though your ribcage is politely waiting its turn. Your friend Clara, the one who once tried to bleach her freckles off with lye, swears that a single summer spent not speaking during daylight hours lifted her entire face half an inch. She says this with wide, unblinking eyes, the corners of her mouth so smooth it's as if no word has ever escaped them. Historians still argue whether this cult of stillness had actual physiological effects or was just an elaborate performance of class and control. One thing's certain. In Victorian beauty culture, silence isn't passive. It's active work. You remember being a child, giggling too loud in the garden, and having your mother tap your chin with the back of her fan. "Smiles age, dear," she whispered. "A blank face is forever." So now you keep your expressions locked tight. You laugh inside. You worry inwardly. Your eyebrows are Switzerland. It's become a habit. Really. You've trained yourself to express joy with your earlobes and disappointment with your wrist angle. You practice in mirrors, experimenting with the subtlest flicker of the eye to convey disdain without causing forehead drama. Sometimes you wonder if anyone actually sees you anymore, or just the marble sculpture you've become. But then someone compliments your unblemished aura, and you remember. This is the goal. Glow without effort. Radiate without movement. A houseguest arrives. You're introduced. You smile very slightly. Not with your lips, that's too dangerous, but with your intention. You incline your head. They respond with a grin, full and wrinkled, and you wince ever so slightly. How wasteful you're made. A girl named Edith with unruly eyebrows and no concept of restraint once asked you if it's exhausting to be so quiet all the time. You blinked slowly. You considered a response. And then you said, in a whisper so delicate it may have been mistaken for wind, "Yes, but it's beautiful." She hasn't asked again. You wonder, often, how much of this silence is about beauty, and how much is simply survival. When you say nothing, you reveal nothing. And when you reveal nothing, no one has anything to criticize. It's a kind of armor, less noisy than steel, but just as firm. You once tried a day of unrestrained expression, just to see. You smiled at a child. You laughed at a joke. You frowned at the soup. By evening, your cheeks felt sore, your forehead cramped, and your mirror reflected what could only be described as wrinkle intent. Never again. Instead, you've refined the art of what you call the still glow, a kind of radiant neutrality, the calm of a lake that's never been disturbed. The irony, of course, is that this kind of stillness takes enormous energy. You catch yourself occasionally, in moments of private panic, wondering if your still face is just another mask. But then you remember the snail cream, the effort, the vinegar rinse, and you know, if the glow exists, it's not from joy. It's from discipline. A visitor compliments your complexion. They say you look like a porcelain figurine. You nod. Inside, you scream. Because really, porcelain? That's so last season. You were going for angel marzipan. Later that night, you retreat to your room. You allow yourself 3 full expressions in private. A stretch of the mouth, purse of the lips, a wide, exaggerated yawn. Your muscles ache like you've just run a very quiet marathon. You wash your face gently, the silence still clinging to your skin like a veil. You apply your creams, Snail, Rose, and the mysterious one labeled only as Midnight Bloom. You have no idea what's in it. It smells like candle soot and maybe witchcraft. You sit in silence for a full 20 minutes before bed. It's not meditation. It's maintenance. You feel your glow settling into place. Less like light, more like a rumor, and finally, as you ease between crisp white sheets, your face uncreased and your soul lightly exhausted, you think, tomorrow, I'll speak less, just to see how bright I can get. Morning again, your eyelids flutter open, but the rest of you stays perfectly still. Moving your face too quickly after sleep is risky. It could undo hours of snail-slathered repair. You lie motionless for a moment, letting your skin remember who it is. Then, slowly, you sit up. The sheets leave soft creases across your cheek, and for a horrifying moment, you imagine they're permanent. You rush to your vanity, brush aside the lace curtain, and inspect the damage that it fades. Barely relieved, you begin your next task, powdered arsenic. You know what you're thinking. Isn't that deadly? Yes, but only if you're careless, or unlucky, or too enthusiastic with your spoon. Arsenic wafers, sold in the back pages of beauty catalogs, are the not-so-secret weapon of many a Victorian glow. You nibble one cautiously, like it might bite back. They claim it clarifies the skin, gives you a softness, milk glass, moonlight, angelic death, that no cream could ever replicate. And while doctors warn that your liver may object, beauty knows no boundaries, or internal organs. Historians still argue whether most women knew the real risks or whether the effects of low-dose arsenic were so subtle and slow that they simply didn't care. After all, is a glow even real if it doesn't come with a tiny hint of peril? The taste isn't much, chalky with a hint of metal and melancholy. You chase it with a sip of barley water and hope your stomach cooperates. So far, so good. Your complexion does look smoother. Your eyes a bit glassier. You mentally add one more wafer to tomorrow's planned at brunch. Your sister mentions your pale perfection. She says it like an insult, but you accept it like a gift. She's been using peach tint again, vulgar. You, on the other hand, simply look untouched by the sun or joy. You excuse yourself after the third course, roast pigeon and asparagus jelly, and retreat to your room. There, nestled beside your powder puff and clove sachet, is something new. A handwritten recipe from your friend Agatha. She's recently returned from Italy and brought back tales of a Roman apothecary selling bats' milk serum. You're skeptical. Bats don't exactly scream dairy, but you make a note to investigate. Instead, you revisit your old standby, white lead face paste. Thick, opaque, like trying to paint your face with regret. You apply it with care, blending it with a feather because your fingers are too warm and your brush has been banished ever since it shed bristles mid-application and made you look like a startled hedgehog. You top it off with a dab of rouge. Not real rouge, but the kind made from crushed strawberries and a whisper of shame. It's meant to look natural, like your cheeks accidentally flushed while reading a scandalous poem. You haven't read a poem in weeks. Your cheeks glow, but not with life. With intent. A knock. You stiffen. It's your neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, come to invite you to a garden stroll. You accept, of course, walking through foliage you cannot touch, under sunlight you cannot enjoy. You don your bonnet, the wide-brimmed kind that creates perfect little ovals of shade, and drape a thin muslin scarf across your lower face. To the uninformed, it might look like modesty. In truth, it's SPF 1870 as you walk through the hedges. Your feet crunch gravel and your face remains impassive. Birds chirp. A bee hovers too close and you don't flinch. Victorian beauty, after all, is 80% not reacting to things. Mrs. Hargrove prattles on about a new hair oil she's ordered from France. You nod in the right places, smile faintly, wonder if it contains snails. Back home, you remove your scarf. Your skin is still pale, still perfect. You note a faint line above your eyebrow, likely from frowning when the gardener stepped on your parasol. Unacceptable. You apply a dab of arsenic lotion and press cold metal against the spot, as if freezing your emotions directly into your flesh. That evening, during your cleansing ritual, you pause to reflect. You've ingested poison, painted your face with lead, declined a cucumber sandwich to preserve your cheekbones, and refused to laugh at Mrs. Hargrove's joke about her husband's gout. You've earned your glow. In the mirror, you look faintly unreal, like you've been removed from time. And perhaps you have. That's the dream, isn't it? To become so still, so glowy, so untouchable. that the years glance off you like rain on waxed silk. You say nothing as you slip into bed. Not even good night. You've smiled once today. That's enough. Your maid is late. It's not catastrophic, but still, there's an order to things, and when your hair hasn't been brushed by 7:05 a.m., the glow is at risk. You sit at your vanity, arms folded gently in your lap like a saint in a stained glass window, trying not to frown. The line between mild annoyance and a forehead crease is perilously thin. Eventually, Edith bustles in, breathless and red-cheeked, which of course is its own kind of scandal. Flushed skin is for peasants and passion, not for proper women of composure. You make a mental note to lend her your soothing cucumber vinegar tomorrow. A quiet threat in a bottle. You say nothing. Your silence is its own reprimand. She begins brushing your hair in long, even strokes, the scent of rose pomatum lifting from the strands. It's not your favorite. It smells vaguely like soap and old envelopes, but it's reliable. And in Victorian beauty, reliable is what keeps your face from collapsing under the weight of newfangled nonsense. Today's experiment, however, is far from reliable. You've acquired a small jar of something unusual. The apothecary called it hematopaste, though the label is more theatrical than instructive. Supposedly, it contains trace amounts of vital beast essence. You're 80% sure that means bat blood, possibly lizard, definitely something that once blinked. You unscrew the lid with the caution of someone opening a box labeled caution. May contain secrets. Inside is a thick, ruby-colored cream with a shimmer that's unsettling. Like beetroot and opal had a dramatic falling out. You apply it with your pinky, because that finger exerts the least pressure. The cream sinks in slowly, like it's trying to get to know you first. Immediately, your cheeks take on a glow not unlike fever, but make it fashionable. Historians still argue whether Victorian hematocosmetics were genuine enhancers or elaborate hoaxes sold to women drunk on beauty manuals and mild arsenic. Either way, you feel something shift. A new kind of shine. A barely perceptible pulse beneath the skin. Breakfast is stewed pears and boiled oats. You decline the bread. Carbohydrates are fine for men and children, but your face can't afford the puff. Besides, today's mission requires clarity. Not crumbs. You're off to Madame Bellamy's. One of those discreet salons that pretends it's not a salon. Just a house, really, with suspiciously perfect women coming and going through a side entrance. Inside, it smells like camphor, rose, and secrets. You're there for the latest facial technique. Skin suction via pig's bladder. Don't ask. It's supposed to wake up the dermis. You're not sure what your dermis has been doing, but clearly not enough. You lie back on the chaise, your face tilted toward the skylight, and let Madame apply the bladder apparatus to your cheeks. It makes a soft schloop sound, like pudding being politely removed from a jar. It's not painful exactly, but deeply undignified. She whispers that your skin is very obedient. You don't know what that means, but it sounds like a compliment, so you nod. You leave with your face tingling and your self-respect somewhere near your knees. But the glow, oh, the glow. It's real. You catch sight of yourself in a window and think, I could haunt a romantic novel like this. On the carriage ride home, you sit in full shade. You pass two girls with wind-chapped cheeks and too much joy in their expressions. You pity them. They don't know the rules yet. Back in your room, you reapply a fine dusting of pearl powder, just enough to soften the heat left by Madame's suctioning efforts. The powder is made from crushed oyster shell, mixed with starch and humility. You don't ask how they get it so fine. Some things are better left mysterious. You spritz your face lightly with lavender water. Not because it helps, just because it smells like dignity. Your maid lays out your evening gown. Seafoam green with sleeves wide enough to swat a scandal. You dress slowly, deliberately, checking your reflection between each layer. Your face, now aglow with blood cream, suction recovery, and maritime dust, is as close to porcelain as it's ever been. You smile. Once. Gently. It's dangerous, but worth it. Dinner. Someone compliments your moonlit elegance. You demur, of course, and mutter something vague about cucumber water and sleep. But inside, you beam. Silently. Because deep down, your face is a full-time job. And tonight, it's working overtime. You begin the next morning as you always do, by pretending you've awoken with a naturally luminous glow, when in fact it took 23 products, for whispered prayers, and one experimental snail mint tincture to achieve. There's a small thrill in being up before you're made. Not because you plan to dress yourself, heavens no, but because it gives you a rare moment alone with your glow journal, a modest leather-bound book where you've carefully documented every cream, powder, and semi-toxic dab you've applied over the past 2 years. Today, under the soft heading New Discoveries, you add hematopaste, possible bat, subtly effective, slight cheek heat, smells like secrets. You pause, tapping the feathered quill to your lip, and then scrawl. Glow level 7.5/10. Still more alive than Cousin Edith. The house is quiet. Only the faint sound of a coal scuttle in the hallway. You stretch, not too much. You wouldn't want to disturb your facial alignment. Then you reach for the newest trend. A quiet little miracle that's making rounds through London's upper parlors, beauty societies, private clubs where women meet under candlelight to swap recipes, gossip, and the occasional sachet of illicit beauty tonic. Yours is called the Society of Delicate Radiance. You were invited 2 weeks ago after Lady Ellsworth noticed you hadn't furrowed your brow in over a fortnight. High praise. The meetings are held in the back parlor of a tea shop, hidden behind a curtain that smells faintly of rosehip and conspiracy. Tonight is your first real attendance. You're giddy, but very still, always still. Historians still argue whether such societies were simply social gatherings disguised as skincare salons or something deeper, secret spaces where women, stifled by etiquette and corsets, found rare chances to be seen, even while preserving the illusion of invisibility. You arrive just past sunset. The air is thick with bergamot. Around the candlelit table sit 6 women, all glowing faintly in that distinctly unnatural Victorian way. Nobody smiles. Smiles are for amateurs. Lady Whittaker begins by passing around a new recipe. Silk moss cream, supposedly harvested from the underbelly of caterpillars. You murmur your approval. It's terribly chic to be disgusted quietly. Miss Porton then shares a vial of something she calls whisper tincture. It's pale blue, smells like chalk and mint, and is to be taken after undesirable conversation. You pocket a sample, just in case you're cornered by your cousin's fiancé again. The one who called your skin healthy. Barbarian. When it's your turn, you reveal the hematopaste. You describe its subtle warmth, its suspicious shimmer, and the fact that you had mild cheek twitching for several hours afterward. The group is delighted, in the way Victorian women express delight. A sharp inhale and 3 consecutive blinks. Someone claps once. The evening moves on, with each woman revealing some new bizarre strategy. Charcoal biscuits, moth wing serum, powdered quartz. Someone mentions a salon in Paris that offers snail vapor. There's talk of a woman who fell asleep in a rose bath and woke up 10 years younger. You sip your chamomile and note that someone across the room is starting to glow too brightly. An unspoken rule violation. You all pretend not to notice on your way out. Lady Ellsworth presses a small tin into your hand. It's unlabeled. Apply only on Tuesdays, she whispers. You don't ask why. That would be vulgar. Back at home, you undress carefully. Every garment folded, every movement smooth. You reapply a layer of pearl dust, because you're still riding the high of social validation and want to look extra ghostly at bedtime. Before slipping between the sheets, you look at yourself in the mirror. Candlelight dances across your cheekbones. You look like a secret no one quite remembers how to tell. There's a fine line between elegance and absurdity. You walk it every day, in heeled slippers and scented gloves. But tonight you rest. And you glow. The morning light is dull and gray, but that's exactly how you like it. Overcast skies are nature's soft filter. You sit at your vanity, wrapped in a shawl that smells like lavender and last night's gossip, preparing for your next battle in the war for radiance. Today's mission. Olfactory supremacy. Victorian beauty isn't just what's seen, it's what's smelled. The wrong scent and your entire glow collapses into suspicion. Patchouli? Too theatrical. Musk? Utterly scandalous. Lemon? Pleasant. But only if you're scrubbing floors or trying to bleach freckles into non-existence. Today calls for pear soap. You unwrap the slim bar like it's a letter from a secret admirer. The scent is sweet, watery, faintly medicinal, cleanliness with an accent. Pear soap isn't just for washing. It's a statement, a class marker, a signal that your skin has never been troubled by labor, sun, or anything as vulgar as effort. You lather your hands, then delicately touch the foam to your neck and wrists, making sure to rinse in rainwater saved in a bowl near your window. You wouldn't dream of using the tap. Tap water is for people who pronounce the H in herbs as the soap lingers faintly on your skin. You close your eyes and imagine what people will say when you pass. She smells like restraint. Is that serenity I'm picking up? She must be too rich to perspire. That's the goal. Your maid enters and pauses. She smells it too. You glance at her once, and she immediately turns to fluff your pillows, clearly chastened by your superior scent trail. You say nothing. The soap has spoken. Historians still argue whether scents like pear soap were truly distinctive to the upper class, or whether their prominence came from clever advertising and sheer cultural snobbery. One thing's certain, if your soap came in a box with gold foil, you were already winning. Your next step is to neutralize your room's air. That means opening one window precisely 3 inches, not for the breeze, but to avoid the scent of boiled cabbage drifting up from the kitchen. You then light a single beeswax candle, infused with bergamot, because anything stronger would clash with your personal scent profile. You dress slowly, choosing a blouse with lace cuffs that cover your wrists while still allowing wafts of pear to escape as you pour tea or nod with measured interest during polite conversation. A calculated release. Today's visitor is Mrs. Pembroke, a woman with a fondness for violets and a loud laugh that has surely aged her a decade. You prepare accordingly by dabbing a hint of rosewater behind each earlobe, just enough to override her inevitable perfume cloud, but not enough to commit to a floral identity. Rose is lovely, but in moderation. Too much, and you become a poem read by someone trying too hard. Mrs. Pembroke arrives on time, dressed in puce and smelling like pressed petals and marital disappointment. You greet her with a nod. Your glow, amplified by the soap, the candle, the silence, does all the talking. As you pour tea, 1 sugar, no cream, lactose clouds the complexion. You listen to her prattle on about her new hairdresser, who insists on using marigold tinctures. You offer a single raised brow. It says, "Curious choice." Inside, you are screaming. After she leaves, you cleanse your space. Not physically, but sensually. You wave a sachet of dried herbs through the air like a priest banishing bad choices. The pair remains, victorious. Later that evening, you update your glow journal. Scent profile, day 7, pear soap equals success. Guests startled. Maintained presence without words. You underline it twice and draw a tiny sketch of a bar of soap wearing a crown. Before bed, you consider switching to the lemon sandalwood oil you were given by your cousin from Bath. But no, sandalwood is for dramatic women who host salons and cry into their gloves. You're not quite there yet. You slip into your nightgown, mist your pillow with rosewater, again, restraint, and lie back. The candle flickers beside you. Your skin is clean, your scent is correct, and your soul has been lightly polished. You may not have spoken all day, but you have said so much. There's a peculiar ache in your ribs this morning, not from sickness, but from success. The corset. You slept in it again, just to hold everything in place. And now your lungs whisper curses with every shallow breath. But your posture? Divine. You reach for the stay's laces but pause. Not yet. First, a sip of vinegar tonic. Apple if you're feeling rebellious. Supposedly, it tones the blood. Or was it the nerves? Either way, it's acidic, unpleasant, and therefore clearly effective as you wince and swallow. You remember your aunt's advice. Nothing worth having comes without slight internal organ damage. You suspect she was only half joking. Today's topic: corsets and collagen. Or at least the Victorian idea of collagen long before serums and syringes. Back then, tautness came from tension, from constraint, from trussing yourself like an expensive roast and hoping your face looked firmer as a result. Historians still argue whether corsets genuinely improved skin tone by increasing circulation, or whether that was just propaganda to distract from the inability to sit down properly. Whatever the case, you know one thing. You glow more when you can't breathe deeply. You rise from bed slowly, like royalty emerging from a spell. Your maid hurries in, clutching the morning stays and a lavender sachet for comfort. Lavender doesn't actually help. It just smells polite. The corset is pale blue today. Laced to your liking, not too tight, not too merciful. You lift your arms overhead, and your maid begins the dance of compression. One tug, two, a gasp, a pause for dizziness. You focus on the mirror as your waistline shrinks and your cheekbones become slightly more tragic. There's science here, you think. Or at least, an illusion of science wrapped in silk and held by whalebone as your shape reconfigures. You apply a thin glaze of almond oil to your face. The smell is sweet, the texture sticky, but you've been told it helps maintain youthful elasticity. That, or it just glues your skin in place long enough to convince people you're 22. You're not. You haven't been for a while. Next comes the powdered pearl. You tap it gently under your eyes, careful to avoid the laugh lines you deny possessing. The powder catches the light and refracts it into something resembling vitality. Light is your ally. So is denial. You think about Clara again, your friend with the unfortunate freckles and the even more unfortunate sense of humor. She once said something shocking at tea, something involving laughter. You remember your teacup trembling, and not from heat. Laughter is dangerous. It's dynamic. It wrinkles. It reveals. You don't laugh. Not unless you can control it. You smile from the eyes downward, from the throat up. Your mouth is for sipping. Your lips for speculation. Fully laced now, you descend the stairs. Each step is a negotiation between elegance and oxygen. You float more than walk. Your glow is serene, yet slightly desperate. Breakfast is light because real digestion would disrupt your silhouette. A boiled egg, soft fruit, and a sip of that same vinegar tonic. It tastes worse the second time. That must mean it's working. You chat with your mother over toast crumbs, maintaining your perfect stillness. She comments on your color. You thank her without moving your face. She doesn't seem to notice. Or she does and pretends not to. That's the game. Later, during your walk in the garden, umbrella angled just so to avoid sun. You feel the corset dig ever so slightly into your side. It pinches, but in a symmetrical way. You imagine your skin firming beneath the pressure, becoming glassy, becoming glow-worthy. A neighbor passes by, waves too eagerly, and nearly trips over her own feet. Her corset is too loose, her glow uneven. Pity. You nod in acknowledgement and feel superior in 3 dimensions. That evening, back in your room, you finally unlace. The moment of release is both sinful and divine. You inhale deeply for the first time all day, and your ribs creak like the floorboards of an old church. You look in the mirror. Your waist bears the marks of dedication. Indentations, red lines, subtle bruises shaped like fashion. But your face? Oh, your face. It looks calm, composed, tightly organized. You smooth a fresh layer of night cream, Snail, of course, and let your muscles slowly melt beneath it. You've been bound, shaped, and lifted. And the glow, you must admit, is real. Real enough to endure. Real enough to do it again tomorrow. You dream of sunlight, but even in sleep, you turn your face away. Your skin knows the rules better than you do. And when morning arrives, gray and damp as a forgotten handkerchief, you feel a strange sense of relief. Today, you will avoid the sun like the plague. Not metaphorically. Not in that whimsical, parasol-twirling way. Literally, like the sun is a contagious disease creeping over garden walls to infect your complexion with freckles and social ruin. You rise without fanfare. The windows are curtained. The light is indirect, like it's been filtered through several layers of regret. You move toward your vanity in shadows, as if being seen by the mirror too early might count as exposure. You begin with sun balm. Not a balm that protects against the sun, no, this is Victorian England. That kind of innovation is a century away. This is a balm that claims to deflect vitality. In short, it makes you look less alive, so the sun finds nothing worth touching. Historians still argue whether these pale pastes were more superstition than science, but we do know this. The paler the skin, the higher the standing. And you, dear listener, are aiming for a freshly laundered bedsheet that has never felt wind. You apply it gently, pressing rather than rubbing. The effect is instant. A fine, matte finish that whispers, "I've never walked briskly in my life." You add a dab of lead-based powder to the high points of your face. It's not just decorative. It's preventative. Every particle creates another microscopic barrier between you and the treacherous sun. Your maid brings in a breakfast tray, porridge and stewed apples, served lukewarm to avoid flushing the cheeks. You eat slowly, chewing with your molars. Your expression remains neutral. Warm food can be emotional. You stay calm. Next, dressing for outdoor avoidance. You select a gown with high collar, long sleeves, and gloves. The gloves are ivory silk, lined with cotton to prevent sweat. You also wear undergloves made from lemon-soaked linen. Not for sun protection, but because the lemon supposedly draws out impurities. If it bleaches your knuckles again, well, that's just bonus glow. Then your shield, a wide-brimmed hat with a veil. The brim is reinforced with whalebone. The veil is fine lace, dark enough to block light but sheer enough for conversation. You resemble a very fashionable beekeeper or someone mourning their social freedom. You step outside. The garden is in bloom. Roses, delphiniums, treacherous, light-reflecting things. You keep to the path, walking with parasol in hand, always angled between the sun and your right cheek, which tends to pink if insulted. The neighbor's children run past, faces gleaming with unbothered sun exposure. You wince. One of them actually has color in his cheeks. A clear cry for help. Misses. Flanagan waves at you from her balcony. She has no hat. You wonder if she's given up entirely, or if her complexion is some kind of postmodern performance art. Either way, you respond with a faint nod, less an acknowledgement than a formal sigh in physical form. You return inside after precisely 20 minutes, as prescribed by the Womanly Art of Dignity and Decay, your favorite etiquette beauty hybrid guidebook. Any longer and your skin might start engaging with its surroundings. Back upstairs, you begin recovery. First, a rinse with barley water to reabsorb shadows. Then, a chilled cloth steeped in chamomile and shame. You lie back in your chaise, cloth over your face, breathing through your nose and trying not to think about the 17 seconds when a sunbeam may have touched your jawline. Historians still debate whether the Victorian obsession with sun avoidance stemmed from class divide, medical misunderstanding, or sheer collective drama. But you know the truth. The sun is unpredictable. It gives without asking. It warms. It reddens. Provokes laughter and tan lines. Unacceptable. Later, you touch your cheek and feel warmth, panic. But then you realize it's just your pulse. You've lived to glow another day. You apply one more thin coat of vinegar lotion, just to be sure. The smell is horrifying, but its promise is safety. At dinner, you sit furthest from the windows. Your glow is internal tonight, contained, cultivated. They say the sun gives life. You prefer a candle. The vinegar rinses come out tonight. You knew it would be one of those days the moment you caught your reflection mid-afternoon. Glow, yes, but with the faintest hint of texture. Not a blemish, heavens no, but perhaps the idea of one. And in Victorian skincare, even an implied imperfection demands a full ritual response. So now here you are, standing barefoot in your dressing room, pouring cold vinegar-infused water into a shallow porcelain bowl. The scent rises like a warning. Sharp, herbal, and slightly judgmental. Tonight's formula is especially potent. A blend of white wine vinegar, dried rosemary, and one grated radish root. Edith says it smells like a haunted salad. You say it smells like purity. Same difference. You begin the rinse carefully, soaking one of your evening cloths. Not to be confused with your sun cloths or your crisis flannels. The linen is stiff from repeated use and starch, but it softens under the solution. You dab your face slowly, avoiding the eyes and anything resembling enthusiasm. Historians still argue whether these vinegar rinses actually refined skin or simply numbed it into temporary tightness. But one thing is certain, they made you feel like you were doing something. And in an age where emotional expression was discouraged, physical rituals became the ultimate comfort. You pat your cheeks gently, watching the flush rise. Not a blush, not rouge, just response. The skin tightens, contracts. You imagine it whispering thank you with every acidic touch. Then comes your hair rinse. Yes, vinegar there, too. You retrieve a glass bottle labeled Hair Brilliance Tonic, handwritten by your cousin Beatrice, who swears it made her ringlets shinier and her husband more attentive. You suspect it was the ringlets. You kneel by your washing basin, tilt your head forward, and slowly pour the solution over your scalp. It smells like punishment and pickles. Your eyes water. The floor becomes a tiny lake of diluted regrets. But the results, once your hair dries, are undeniable. Shine. Not sparkle, no. Sparkle is for opera singers and scandal. Shine is controlled. Shine says, I have no secrets, only good breeding and soft lighting. You towel off with gentle pressing motions. No friction allowed. Then you braid your hair loosely, not to sleep in, never that, but just to set the strands in tension. As one of your Glow Society friends once put it, you didn't laugh, but you wanted to. Next, you retrieve your grandmother's recipe box. It's hidden in the back of your vanity drawer, behind a fan and 2 empty cold cream jars you refuse to throw away because they're still pretty. You pull out a card labeled Evening Tonics for Skin and Spirit. Tonight's pick, chamomile vinegar with a hint of valerian root. You prepare it on your bedside table, not to drink, it's terrible, but to dab on your temples before sleep. It allegedly calms the nerves and prevents nightmares of emotional expression. As you dab, the smell wraps around you like a floral sigh. You feel clean, controlled, slightly brined, but in the elegant way. Dinner is a blur. You remember declining pudding to avoid sugar glow. You remember nodding politely at a joke about gooseberries. You remember your uncle remarking that your complexion was positively Victorian tonight, which, in this context, is high praise and mild threat. Back in your room, you check your glow in the mirror one last time. A faint sheen, slightly acidic in nature, like you've been kissed by restraint. Your maid asks if you'd like your room aired out. You say no. Let the vinegar linger. Let it work. Let it speak. Because when you walk into a room tomorrow, you won't need perfume or powder. You'll carry the memory of radish and rosemary, of rituals repeated in silence, of skin carefully calmed into submission. You extinguish the candle. The scent of vinegar remains, ghost-like, and so does your glow. Tonight, you're in a contemplative mood. Perhaps it's the moonlight slipping through your lace curtains like a gossip, or maybe it's the faint weight of pearl powder still clinging to your collarbone. Whatever it is, it draws you back to one of your oldest and strangest beauty rituals. Crushed pearl and crushed spirits. You retrieve the tiny glass vial from your vanity's secret compartment. It's labeled simply, Poudre de Pearl, but you know what's inside. Pulverized oyster shells, sifted and spun into a dust so fine it floats when opened. The bottle is light. Too light. You've been using it too often. Still, you tap just a whisper of the powder into your hand. The shimmer is nearly imperceptible, like fairy breath or delusion. You mix it with a drop of almond milk and apply it beneath your eyes, across your cheekbones, and over the bridge of your nose. It doesn't conceal, it suggests. The effect is ethereal. You look simultaneously awake and unbothered, which is ideal, since the opposite is true on both counts. Historians still argue whether crushed pearls were a legitimate cosmetic or a fantastically expensive form of self-hypnosis. After all, who among the truly glowing has time for fact-checking when faced with oyster dust and the promise of eternal radiance? As you lean into the mirror to inspect your handiwork, your spirits dip slightly. The powder is lovely, yes, but so was yesterday's glow, and the one before that. You're beginning to suspect there is no final state of perfection, only maintenance and mild panic. You pull back, sit straighter, fold your hands in your lap like you're about to be painted. And that's when the memories come, half fond, half ridiculous. You think of your first pearl dust application, given by your great-aunt during a thunderstorm. She had wrapped you in silk, whispered something in French that may or may not have been a dessert recipe, and dabbed your nose with shimmer. This, she said, will make you look important, even when you are not. It worked. You've been important ever since. Or at least, you've looked it. You reach for your spirit-repairing tonic. Not literal spirits, you're far too disciplined for alcohol, but a mood cordial made from rhubarb, saffron, and something called bittersweet bark. It tastes like regret and furniture polish, but your face relaxes ever so slightly after you sip it, and that's all that matters. The thing about Victorian beauty is that it rarely involves joy. It's a quiet choreography of effort and restraint. You glow not because you're happy, but because you've earned the right to look like you might be. You prepare for bed slowly. Fold your gloves. Brush your hair with 97 strokes instead of 100, just to keep fate off balance. You place the pearl powder back in its drawer with reverence, though the vial is nearly empty now. You'll have to send Edith to inquire about more, discreetly. Then, the final step. You take your expression inventory in the mirror. Mouth neutral. Eyes distant but aware. Brows untroubled. Chin lifted enough to seem disinterested. You nod once, to no one in particular, and extinguish the candled eye in the darkness. You feel your skin settle, like cooled wax. You think about tomorrow, and the next dusting of crushed finery, and how every face you wear is only ever a version of the last. But tonight, this one will do. You close your eyes and drift into sleep, luminous with effort and just a trace of mollusk. The next morning begins with an argument. Not out loud, of course, that would risk expression. But internally, a war is waging over one of the most delicate and defining territories on your face. Your eyebrows, you sit at your vanity, tweezers in hand, locked in an ancient, silent duel with yourself. One eyebrow arches naturally. The other, well, it has opinions. And in Victorian England, facial opinions are rarely welcomed, especially above the eyes. You study them both carefully in the mirror, adjusting the light with a lace-draped lamp. From this angle, they look even. From that one, the left one seems to be auditioning for a more modern century. You sigh inwardly. Victorian beauty has no consensus on brows. Historians still argue whether women were expected to leave them full and untouched, soft frames for a pale canvas, or thin and curved like a quill in flight. Beauty manuals give conflicting advice. Some recommend plucking a few stray hairs for neatness. Others encourage complete removal and the gentle penciling in of a suggestion. You settle for a middle path. A single hair is plucked, maybe two. You do it slowly, letting the tension release like a tightrope snapping. The pain is sharp but momentary, a little reminder that even the smallest acts of perfection come at a cost. You soften the area with a dab of chamomile lotion and lean in for further assessment. Your eyebrows are passable. Not symmetrical exactly, but as close as any Victorian face dares to get without looking theatrical. Now for shape maintenance. You take out your eyebrow comb, a tiny thing made of bone and discipline, and smooth both arches with short, reverent strokes. You finish with a thin coating of walnut oil, said to darken the hairs just enough to add emphasis without scandal. You glance at the eyebrow powder, charcoal and soot mixed with beeswax, but think better of it. Today is a linen day. Eyebrow drama is better reserved for velvet. Breakfast is uneventful. Your father asks about the weather. Your mother comments on your posture. No one mentions your eyebrows, which, in a twisted way, is the highest compliment. They look natural, as if they've shaped themselves through sheer will. Later that afternoon, Clara visits with news. A woman she knows, Margaret something, is claiming she bleached her eyebrows using lemon juice and sunlight. You both gasp, but silently. Lemon juice is for elbows and sinners. To put it on your face is to invite chaos into your life. You offer Clara a spoonful of gooseberry cordial to calm her nerves. She accepts and whispers that the Margaret in question also paints her brows back on with ash. You pretend to faint. She fans you with her glove. After she leaves, you sit down and consider your own routine. You've done well. No thinning, no theatrics. Your brows rest above your eyes like polite commas. They suggest elegance. They signal nothing. That night, while removing your pearl dust and rose cream, you take one last look at your reflection. The candle flickers, casting shadows that shift your expression without your help. For a moment, your left brow lifts slightly of its own accord. You narrow your eyes. A warning. It settles. Before bed, You press a linen strip lightly across your brows, just to keep them in place. It's a technique you invented after reading a passing reference in the etiquette of eyelids and other concerns. No one else does it, which is why it works. You lie in bed and imagine a time when eyebrows will grow wild and proud again, untamed and expressive. You shudder slightly. Not in this house. Not under this roof of order and glow. Tomorrow you may pluck a third hair, but only if it deserves it. By midday, the house is filled with the comforting clatter of fine china and hushed scandal. It's time for afternoon tea, that sacred hour when social performance is steeped gently in Earl Grey and sipped with judgment. You sit at the far end of the drawing room, in the spot with the best light, not for warmth but for optimal cheekbone glow. Today, your cheeks are subtly flushed, and not just from the embarrassment of being seen without gloves. Heaven forbid. No, you've tried something new. A tincture stirred into your tea earlier, one that claims to encourage natural pinking of the face. A phrase so vague it could mean anything from blushing to bloodletting. The label read, quinine and quassia, for the quietly vibrant. Historians still argue whether such tonics truly affected complexion or simply acted as Victorian placebo elixirs, offering the sensation of doing something without necessarily doing much at all. One thing is clear. They were everywhere, and you now own 3.s. You sip your tea, no sugar, milk optional. You feel a pleasant heat rise to your cheeks. Not enough to draw concern, but just enough to imply vitality. Carefully controlled vitality, of course. Nobody glows violently at tea. The table is crowded with conversation, but you remain poised. To your left, Clara is recounting a harrowing encounter with a cucumber. To your right, Miss Jane Pembroke is trying to push her theory that crushed dog rose petals can heal cracked lips and broken engagements. You nod gently at both, offering the sort of non-committal support that leaves no wrinkles. There's also tonic water being passed around. Not for hydration, but for gossip. It contains quinine, once used to ward off malaria but now repurposed for its faint bitter charm. Supposedly, it clears the skin and sharpens the mind. You drink yours slowly, hoping it clears Clara's storytelling first. A small dish of candied ginger sits in front of you, but you resist. Sugar is too unpredictable. 1 minute you're enjoying a tiny crystallized cube, the next your skin is weeping under the weight of glycemic betrayal. Instead, you focus on posture. You've angled your chin precisely 11 degrees down, enough to appear engaged, but not so far that gravity gets ideas. It's exhausting, this orchestration of facial geography, but essential. Glow is not only applied, it's performed. At 1 point, someone asks what you use for your complexion. You pause, eyes lowering modestly as though you've just remembered your face exists. Then you say, softly, discipline, mostly. A lie, of course, but a socially acceptable one. Back home, you write that line in your glow journal. Discipline, mostly. Successful line at tea. Must repeat. You also make a note to investigate this quinine tonic further. Your cheeks looked alive, yes, but your left eye twitched slightly for the duration of the lemon sponge anecdote. Possibly a coincidence. Possibly witchcraft. Further study required as the sun dips behind the curtain-lined windows. You sit by the fireplace with your evening cordial, a mix of elderflower and barely legal amounts of peppermint, and reflect on how well you manage to glow in public without revealing any internal sentiment. That's the trick, really. Tea is not about flavor. It's about facade. Every sip, every glance, every politely veiled insult floats beneath the surface like lace over linen. And you, with your tincture-pink cheeks and quinine-clear gaze, navigated it flawlessly. Your reward? A face that held out a mood that didn't, and a glow that made the sponge cake irrelevant. Before bed, you press a warm cloth over your cheeks. The flush lingers. You pretend it's natural. You tell yourself it might be. Just once, you smile. Only because no one is watching. Tonight, the glow begins not with cream, nor powder, nor vinegared mystery liquid, but with stillness. Not the passive kind, the kind born of exhaustion or resignation. No, this is the cultivated stillness of a woman who knows that every twitch of muscle could be a wrinkle's origin story. Every gasp a potential crease. Every emotion a risk. You sit by the fireplace in the evening parlor, flame light flickering over your cheekbones, practicing what your mother once called the art of the blank stare. She didn't mean it cruelly. In her youth, she had been renowned for a face so unmoving during conversation that suitors thought she might be a statue with unusually refined taste in embroidery. And she passed that legacy on to you. So here you are. Still, unreadable, perfectly composed as Edith combs your hair. Did you enjoy the tea, miss? She asks, far too casually. You don't respond immediately. You're timing it. A slow blink, a micropause. Then, it was adequate. Every word is carefully released. No sudden enthusiasm. No raised eyebrows. You speak as if even adjectives might leave a mark. Your stillness isn't laziness. It's strategy. It tells the world, I have nothing to prove. I do not fidget because I have nowhere to be. I do not react because nothing shocks me anymore. Not since the apricot mask disaster of 1871. Historians still argue whether Victorian stillness was a form of resistance, repression, or just the physical result of extremely tight undergarments. You personally suspect it's all three. You lift your hand to your temple. Hold it there, not because of a headache, but because it stretches the skin upward slightly, giving the illusion of cheekbone elevation. You hold it for exactly 37 seconds, then release. The glow, you swear, intensifies. After your hair is brushed 100 strokes in silence, you move to your mirror. You check your expression alignment. Eyes, symmetrical. Mouth, undefined, but in a charming way. Brow, neutral, with just enough curve to suggest you've read a novel this week. You reach for your night cream, a blend of glycerin, elderflower water, and a proprietary ingredient you suspect may be whispering to you in Latin. You dab, press, smooth, but never massage. Massage is too passionate. Then comes the stillness hour. No, it's not a tradition. It's a commitment. From 8:30 to 9:30 each evening, you do absolutely nothing expressive. You sit. You breathe. You resist. Your maid calls it your statue time. You call it insurance. During this time, you refuse all interruptions, including those involving surprise guests, minor fires, and once a passing circus bear on the lawn. Your skin must not be startled. Past the hour, you read, but only safe literature. No Dickens, too many orphans and emotions. Tonight it's The Botanical Mind, a 214-page guide to ferns and mosses with absolutely no characters, conflict, or opinions. Perfect. The book rests open in your lap as you stare gently at the middle distance. You occasionally breathe, never deeply. Your maid peeks in at one point and silently backs out again. She knows better than to disturb you during preservation mode. As the clock chimes 9:30, you finally allow your forehead a tiny release. Not quite a raise, just a loosening. You feel the tension slide down your scalp like molasses. You return to your vanity for a final inspection. Your face looks undisturbed. Your glow somehow cooler, more expensive. You think about all the women who laughed today, who winced, or gasped, or grimaced, and you think, I will outlast them all. You blow out the candle, slide into bed. Still as stone, soft as powder, silent as superiority. The moon hangs low tonight, pale and smug, like it knows all your secrets. And you, beneath your embroidered coverlet and triple-layered nightgown, are preparing for the most delicate part of your nightly ritual, the application of moon milk and night cream. It's not an official product, of course. There are no factories, no advertisements. Just a glass bottle passed down from your great-aunt, filled with a viscous, opalescent mixture that smells faintly of milk, mint, and probably mild delusion. She called it lait de lune, moon milk, and insisted it was collected only on nights when the moon was full and jealousy was low. You've never verified that part, but it feels true, and in Victorian beauty, that's more than enough. You hold the bottle up to the candlelight. It glows faintly, whether from magic or zinc oxide. You pour a few drops into your palm and add a spoonful of your usual night cream, a thick blend of lanolin, beeswax, and regret. You mix the two gently with the back of a silver spoon. Not because it's more effective, but because silver calms the cream. According to your glow journal, Historians still argue whether rituals like these held any scientific merit or were simply slow-motion ways of coping with repressed panic. Regardless, the women who glowed were never the ones who rushed. You pat the mixture onto your face carefully, in order: cheeks, chin, forehead, then nose. Always upward. Always symmetrical. The scent wafts upward like a bedtime poem. Soft, slightly sour, and oddly comforting. Once the mixture sets, your skin takes on a pale sheen, cool, damp, and luminous, like a marble statue that's just learned about sadness. You lie back against the pillows and breathe in. Everything smells faintly of sleep and effort. The moonlight through your lace curtain dapples your skin like a watercolor wash. You imagine this as what it must feel like to be painted by a pre-Raphaelite. Soft, luminous, and mildly uncomfortable from the weight of symbolism as you settle into the pillows. Edith returns with your linen forehead strip, which you wear nightly to train the brow. It's lightly dampened with rose water and pressed across your forehead with the tenderness of a love letter you'll never send. You close your eyes and attempt your facial inventory. Cheeks: cool, moisturized, slightly dairy-scented. Lips: untouched, because color is for consciousness. Brows: pinned and peaceful. Chin: lifted slightly, as if you're dreaming of better posture. Then comes the whisper test. You think a sentence to yourself, something mild like, "I do not envy her ankles," and measure the micro-movements in your face. If your nostrils flare, you failed. If your lips twitch, reset. But if your expression stays neutral, unmoved, you win the night. Tonight, you pass. Your cousin Beatrice once said she dreams in rouge and wakes with crow's feet. You haven't spoken to her since. Outside, the wind rustles through the ivy, and a clock chimes softly in another room. You imagine a world where women fall asleep without milk, masks, or meticulously calculated silence. You shiver. How terrifying. No, you prefer this. You prefer rituals that make the glow feel earned. You prefer the creams that require instructions in French. You prefer the slow surrender to stillness, to the hush, to the comfort of knowing that tomorrow, your face will wake up slightly more timeless than today. You tug the coverlet up to your chin, inhale the last wisps of moon milk in the air, and let yourself slip gently into sleep. Tonight, you glow in silence. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. Bath day. Not the full-body ordeal, of course. That's scheduled monthly and requires a separate room, 3 kettles, and a week of emotional preparation. No, today is for the elegant compromise known as the bucket bath. A carefully orchestrated ritual that uses 1 pitcher of warm water, a shallow basin, and the kind of modesty that makes you blush even when alone. You begin by placing a rug on the floor, not for warmth but to prevent splash trauma. Then, Edith brings in the bath kit. A ceramic pitcher with steam curling delicately from its spout, a lavender-scented cloth, and the infamous wooden spoon. Yes, the spoon. For scooping and pouring with the grace of someone who has never been truly wet. You strip only what is absolutely necessary, keeping your chemise in place and slipping your arms out of the sleeves with the precision of a contortionist in mourning. Victorian modesty insists that cleanliness must never appear too convenient. You begin with the arms because they're safe, and pour a careful spoonful of warm water across your forearm. Feels divine, possibly spiritual. You follow with a quick sweep of rose soap, lathered gently into a soft froth. Your skin size, you dab, rinse, press. No scrubbing. Scrubbing is for sailors. Historians still argue whether Victorian women bathed infrequently due to practicality, plumbing, or an elaborate aesthetic that insisted glowing skin must be earned in teaspoons. The truth? A bit of all 3, and a lot of orchestration. You move to the neck and shoulders, carefully angling the mirror to avoid shocking yourself. You apply a mixture of rice starch and chamomile infusion, a brightening wash recommended in the weekly Femininity Companion. It's supposed to remove shadows from the skin, both literal and emotional. For your legs, you sit on a stool and treat them like aristocratic table legs. Delicate, functional, and mostly ignored. A bit of lavender oil on the ankles, followed by a splash of barley water. You dry with a cloth so thin it barely qualifies as fabric but was hand-stitched by a nun. So it's very calming. Hair is not on today's menu. That's a separate affair involving vinegar, moon phrases, and emotional availability. You did that last week. Your scalp is still recovering. You finish with what Edith calls the final sweep, a full-body misting of cucumber water, administered with a perfume pump. It's not about cleaning anymore. It's about ambience. You feel like a slightly chilled melon. In a good way. Once dry, you dress in your recovery garments. A linen shift, loose woolen socks, and a shawl that smells faintly of lemon peel and old books. These clothes say, "I've bathed, but I'm still mysterious." You pour yourself a warm barley and rosehip drink. It tastes like a polite root garden, but it's said to stabilize the complexion after emotional events, like accidental mirror eye contact or the memory of freckles. As you sit near the fire, you write in your glow journal, "Bathed today. Arms and ankles visibly soothed. Spoon technique improving. No splashing. Small triumph. You feel cleaner, yes, but more importantly, controlled. Your skin hums not with scent, but with process. You've spent an hour tending to your edges and have emerged softer, paler, more finely fogged. The world may never know how much effort goes into looking like you do absolutely nothing at all. But you know. You, your spoon, and your glow. Tonight, you're reaching for the dangerous drawer. The one that holds your most volatile beauty item. Not because of risk to your health, though that's certainly on the table, but because of aesthetic volatility. This drawer contains your painted veins kit. Yes, painted. You open the box slowly, like a stage magician revealing something both wondrous and deeply questionable. Inside, laid out like surgical tools for the socially anxious, are a tiny sable brush, a pot of bluish-purple pigment made from powdered gentian flower and lead acetate, a miniature water bowl, and a mirror that magnifies every bad decision. You take a deep breath, gently so as not to shift your cheek, and dip the brush. Tonight, you're not just applying beauty. You're creating illusion. Fine, delicate veins sketched just beneath the skin to suggest translucency, fragility, and aristocratic bloodlines going back at least 14 generations. You begin just below the jawline. One soft flick, then a pause. Another beneath your left temple. A squiggle above the collarbone that says, "I am both mortal and faintly ethereal." The goal is to look like you might pass out from too much poetry. Not anemia. Never that. Historians still argue whether painted veins were common practice or an elite eccentricity documented only in the diaries of women with too much access to brushes and not enough access to vitamin D. What's not in doubt is their symbolic weight. Visible veins equaled delicacy, and delicacy equaled status. After all, you can't have glowing skin if the world believes you're robust. Once your veins are in place, you set them gently with a dusting of crushed silk powder, which doesn't actually fix anything but gives you the comforting sensation of clouding your sins. You lean back to admire your handiwork. It's subtle. Your face looks like fine porcelain, the kind that lives in cabinets and makes guests nervous. Now, time for the shimmer. A tiny pot labeled "Lead Love" sits quietly next to your cold cream. You know better than to use too much. Just a dab across your lids and a hint on the tops of your cheekbones. The shine is neither metallic nor oily. It's ghostly, like the glint of a teardrop on lace. You glance at yourself in the mirror and feel proud. You look expensive in the way that only women with limited blood circulation and unlimited free time can. Edith knocks and asks if you need help with your bonnet ribbon. You say no, tonight's not for bonnets. It's for candlelight and being perceived vaguely through velvet curtains. You descend the stairs slowly, allowing the hem of your gown to whisper across the steps. The drawing room is dim, lit only by firelight and your ambition. You position yourself near the sofa, half-turned, as if caught mid-thought. The painted vein above your jaw glows slightly. Someone gasps. Not loudly, just enough. Success. Conversation swirls around you like perfume. You don't join in. You're there to be admired, not understood later. When the guests leave and the silence returns, you remove your painted veins one by one with a cloth soaked in milk and mint. The pigment bleeds softly into the fabric, like vanishing illusions. You dab, rinse, blot. The ghost of the performance remains. Back at your vanity, you inspect the now bare skin. It looks quieter, a little less mysterious. But you know the truth. The real glow isn't in the makeup, it's in the control, the curation, the decision to look delicate on purpose. You close the drawer gently. Not every night is a vain night. But when it is, you make it count. There's a hierarchy in scents, and tonight you intend to climb it. Quietly, of course, with the grace of a woman who definitely isn't competing but somehow always wins. Because in Victorian society, rosewater and reputation are often the same thing. You sit at your vanity with a row of delicate glass bottles in front of you, each tinted a different shade. Pale blue, amber, rose, and the mysterious violet one with no label. These aren't mere perfumes. They're messages. Scent was never just about aroma, it was a kind of wearable whisper. And the right one, it could elevate you from a social maybe to a glowing certainty. Tonight's choice is rosewater. Not because it's your favorite, actually you find it a little obvious, but because you're attending a dinner with the Davenports and their drawing room has poor ventilation. You need something that says present without shouting it in florals. You apply the rosewater sparingly. Behind the ears, at the wrists, and one daring drop behind the knees, because if you're going to be judged, you might as well be judged thoroughly. Historians still argue whether scent was seen as a cosmetic enhancement or a form of moral signaling. In your experience, it's both. A woman who smells like patchouli is viewed with suspicion. Worldly, theatrical, possibly French. A woman who wears violet is melancholic, poetic, and very likely to ruin someone's engagement. But a woman who smells of rose? She is unbothered, established, trusted. As you prepare to dress, Edith offers you a small sprig of dried lavender to tuck into your corset. You accept, knowing it adds a layer of serenity to your ensemble, though you'll also carry smelling salts, just in case someone else's scent proves ambitious. Dinner is a seated affair, long and candlelit, the kind that starts with bread you're not meant to eat and ends with syllabub you're not meant to finish. You sit strategically beside the window, just enough breeze to lift your scent gently toward Lord Davenport's overworked nose. You catch him sniff slightly and glance in your direction. You pretend not to notice, but inwardly you add it to your tally. That's 3 compliments today. 1 spoken, 2 inhaled. Across the table, someone makes the mistake of wearing musk. You feel yourself tense. The glow dims slightly. You adjust your shawl so that a puff of rose escapes upward. Crisis averted. After dinner, you retire early, not because you're tired, but because glowing is a limited resource. You must protect it. You press a warm cloth to your face to release any lingering tension and follow with a splash of cold rosewater to lock in the illusion that your pores have never once misbehaved. Before bed, you pull out your scent ledger. Yes, scent ledger. You've been keeping it for years. June 3rd, rosewater, classic, lavender sachet. Minor reaction from Lady Harrow, sniffed aggressively. Glow rating, stable. June 4th, violet. Too many sighs. Edith sneezed. Reevaluate. You cap your pen and smile faintly. Not enough to wrinkle, just enough to feel human. Tonight, your skin is smooth, your scent is successful, and your reputation? Still floating delicately in the air. Long after you've blown out the candle, you fall asleep to the ghost of roses and the quiet comfort of having chosen well. You wake to a tickle just above your eyebrow. A strand of hair, rebellious and untrained, dares to make contact. You lie still and breathe through your nose, shallowly. Movement could disturb your eyelash bleaching cycle. Yes, that's today's task. The sun is already peeking through the lace curtains, but you roll away from it instinctively. Sunlight is for plants and mistakes. You reach for the small porcelain tray on your nightstand, where a bowl of cool lemon juice waits, steeped overnight with chamomile flowers and sliced radish. This is your eyelash tonic. It's supposed to lighten the lashes, brighten the gaze, according to the label, and enhance the ghostly look of innocence currently trending among women with ample free time. You sit up slowly, like a haunted figurine brought to life. No sudden movements. You dab the liquid onto your lashes with a fine brush, blinking carefully to avoid stabbing yourself in the eye. You've done that before. It was not conducive to glow. Historians still argue whether these lash treatments were based on real beauty standards or simply another outlet for cosmetic anxiety disguised as delicacy. Either way, the Victorian beauty playbook left no feature untouched. Not even the barely there lashes that flutter like regret on porcelain cheeks. You blink against the sting. The lemon works quickly, probably too quickly. The radish was a recent addition. Edith read somewhere that it activates the juice. You're not convinced. Your left eye begins to water, and for a terrible moment you think, will this ruin the glow? You press a cool cloth gently to your lids and tell yourself it's working. Tears are just radiant release, right? You dab, breathe, recompose. Later, at your writing desk, you avoid mirrors. Not because you fear what you'll see, but because overexposure to one's own image invites hubris. You know your lashes have lightened, just enough to cast a softer shadow. A whisper of lash instead of a line. Clara visits mid-morning and gasps at your wide-eyed freshness. You thank her, though she doesn't know about the radish. She wouldn't approve. She's still using soot. Don't you miss dark lashes? She asks. You sip your vinegar tonic. No, you reply calmly. Darkness is for eyebrows. She doesn't get it. That's fine. The rest of the day is uneventful, which is perfect. Drama furrows the brow, and you're still recovering from last week's overreaction to a poorly trimmed fringe. You spend the afternoon reading a book about herb-based elixirs, taking notes on anything involving petals, acids, or edible blossoms. Just before dinner, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the hallway mirror. The lashes are nearly translucent now, soft and glinting in candlelight like spun sugar. You look lighter, like someone who thinks deeply, but not too deeply. Someone who listens more than she speaks. Someone who might have fainted once on a boat, but only for aesthetic reasons. You apply a thin layer of beeswax balm to hold the lashes in place overnight. Flat lashes are humble lashes, and blot the corners of your eyes to catch any lingering shine. A faint shimmer remains. The kind that says, I was awake before dawn but didn't try. That night, as you prepare for bed, you whisper a quick thank you to the lemon. Not aloud, just mentally. Loud gratitude leads to crow's feet. You lie back, your skin softly powdered, your lashes almost mythological in their subtlety, and think, tomorrow perhaps eyebrows again, but tonight belongs to the eyes. Tonight, your bed is less a place of rest and more a corseted chrysalis. An extension of your daytime effort, wrapped in linen and silence. Because while most women unlace at night, you are not most women. You sleep in your whalebone beauty corset. Yes, it sounds excessive, because it is. And yet here you are, lifting the stiff garment gently from your wardrobe hook, the whale boning gleaming slightly in the lamplight, its stitching neat and ominous. The theory is simple. Maintain posture while unconscious, train your silhouette in the vulnerable hours, and above all, prevent sleep wrinkles by immobilizing yourself like a resting saint. Your cousin calls it madness. You call it discipline. You sit at the edge of the bed as Edith wraps the corset around you. It's not quite as tight as the daytime version. You do need to breathe, technically, but it's structured enough to ensure your shoulders remain back, your ribs stacked like books, and your décolletage preserved like museum-quality wax fruit. You lie back slowly, knees together, hands on your stomach like you're posing for a marble tomb. Edith places a bolster beneath your neck, not a pillow, and tucks your braid into a muslin pouch. You feel mildly embalmed. Historians still argue whether nighttime corseting had real cosmetic benefits or was simply another expression of Victorian obsession with containment. What's known is that women believed in its promise. Wake slimmer, straighter, and altogether more glow-capable. Once settled, you reach for your linen face press, a cool, damp cloth infused with diluted elderflower and rose. You lay it over your forehead, smoothing it with 2 fingers. The weight is light, but symbolic. It says, this face is not to be touched by time. You whisper a few affirmations, not the modern kind, but the Victorian kind, which usually sound like threats. I am stillness. I do not react. My skin fears nothing but joy. Edith blows out the candle. Darkness rushes in. You lie motionless, counting seconds instead of sheep. Every movement is calculated. 1 toe wiggle to ensure circulation, 1 deep breath to test the corset's mercy, and 1 subtle jaw stretch, silent yawn prevention. Your skin feels dewy under the night cream, firmed under the starch-scented sheets, and bolstered by the structured armor beneath your chemise. Sleep tries to seduce you with comfort, but you resist. Glow comes to those who wait upright in the early hours. You wake briefly, conscious of your spine, aware of the corset's whisper. Beauty has boundaries. You don't mind. You drift off again with the serene satisfaction of someone being pressed into a better version of herself. Tomorrow, you'll unlace. But not yet. Tonight, you dream of posture and porcelain. And in the silence of whalebone and willpower, you glow. The morning begins with an itch. A small, traitorous prickling near your chin. Likely from the beeswax balm you applied a touch too generously before bed. But you do not scratch. You do not even flinch. Instead, you blink once and make a note. Reduce balm quantity. Consider camphor. Today, you're thinking about secrets. Specifically, hot secrets. And no, not the romantic kind, the facial kind. Hidden salves, thick ointments, creams so pungent they must be applied in private and denied in public. This is the realm of cold cream and hot secrets. You sit at your vanity, hair unbraided and loose around your shoulders like you've just stepped out of a gothic novel. The air is cool, but your cheeks feel warm from last night's corset. A residual blush without context. Lovely. Temporary. You pull open your bottom drawer and retrieve the secret jar. It's not labeled. It doesn't need to be. It's scent. Camphor, lard, and crushed marjoram would betray it anywhere. This isn't the cream you keep on display for guests. This is the cream you whisper about during backstairs teas and admit to using only when absolutely desperate. You dip 2 fingers in. The texture is thick and slightly gritty. The scent is assertive. You apply it across your cheeks and chin, knowing full well the glow won't arrive until hours later. Once the tingle has faded and the scent has been masked by something more socially acceptable, like rose or denial. Historians still argue whether these pungent creams were effective or simply folklore in a jar. But their persistence in whispered recipes and tattered notebooks suggests one thing. Desperation creates loyalty. You wrap your face loosely in a steaming cloth to help the cream absorb. It feels like marinating your complexion in secrets. You hum quietly, a lullaby to your pores. Meanwhile, Edith enters, trying not to gag. The strong cream today, miss? You nod once. She opens a window. The birds outside pause mid-song. Once the steam has done its work, you remove the cloth. Your skin is red, but in a contained, manageable way. Like it's been slightly startled, not insulted. Now comes the recovery layering. First, a rinse with cold rose water. Then, a pat of rice starch to calm any lingering rebellion. Finally, a dusting of iris powder to add elegance and dull the shameful truth of what you've just done. You put the secret jar away and pull out your usual pot of cold cream, the public one. It smells of almond and compromise. You dab it around your temples, pretending it's all you ever need. Your skin now looks glorious, slightly tight, slightly flushed, faintly glowing in a way that seems effortless. No one will know. They'll assume you woke like this, or that your glow is the result of poetry and genetics. You spend the rest of the morning gliding through your house like a woman without a past. You wave. You nod. You decline sugar. Everyone compliments your complexion. No one asks why the window in your bedroom smells like antique medicine. Later that day, Clara mentions a new product from Paris, a vanishing cream made with lanolin and temperance. You nod as if intrigued, but you know better. You already have what you need. It's just not shelf-ready. That night, back at your vanity, you open your glow journal. June 6th, secret cream successful. Glow arrived at 11:40 a.m. No visible damage. One pigeon fled the window. Will repeat. You go to bed with clean skin and a conscience slightly askew. Because sometimes, the glow isn't polite. Sometimes it smells like boiled herbs and regret. But in the mirror, it still shines. Today begins with a conundrum disguised as a compact. To blush or not to blush, you sit at your vanity, surrounded by tiny pots of rouge, each with its own character. There's the one that stains too quickly, the one that fades into ghosthood by lunch, and the infamous beetroot paste that once gave you the complexion of a startled duchess. This morning, though, you consider playing the long game, the blushing game. You lean in close to the mirror. Your cheeks are pale but smooth, a blank canvas, ideal for drama. But how much? Where? What shade? The Victorian face isn't meant to shout. It's meant to suggest. The goal of blush is simple and treacherous: to look like you've been mildly complimented in a room 2 degrees too warm. You reach for your favorite rouge, Carmine Whisper, a finely milled powder made from cochineal beetles and shame. You tap the tiniest amount onto your ring finger and blend it along the tops of your cheeks, just below the eye, in the softest semicircle. Too high and you'll look suspicious. Too low and you'll look alive. The sweet spot is poetic blood rush. Historians still argue whether Victorian women wore visible makeup regularly or whether most rouge was applied and immediately disavowed. The rule of thumb? If they noticed it, you failed. You apply it slowly, building layer by breathless layer. Then, you examine yourself in different lights. Candle, overcast window, hallway sconce. In each, your cheeks glow faintly, as if something interesting might have happened to you, emotionally, last week. Then comes the real test. The social reaction. You attend a luncheon hosted by Lady Brackenridge, a woman with impeccable manners and terrible instincts. The room is full of well-dressed women pretending not to judge one another's cheeks. You walk in, composed, faintly flushed, and hover near the flower arrangement. Roses, of course, but faded ones, so you don't compete. You smile demurely and wait. Lady Ashcroft leans in. "You look very invigorated, my dear," she murmurs. You blink. Once. Perfect. Success. Later, someone passes a mirror and catches a glimpse of herself. She gasps. "Am I red?" She whispers. You want to reassure her. But instead, you lean in and whisper, "Just enough," which is the most dangerous compliment in the room. After tea, you retreat to your room for a rouge reset. You remove the blush with milk and oat water, then reapply a second version, apple petal, lighter, more honest, as if you've just walked briskly past someone scandalous. The game resets. By the end of the day, you've worn 3 different rouges and told 0 people. Because in Victorian society, beauty is not performance, it's espionage. And blush is your lie detector at tea night. You wipe your cheeks gently with chamomile oil, feeling a slight sadness as the color lifts away. Without it, you look serene but unknowable, like a ghost that used to flirt. You open your glow journal. June 7th, began with Carmine Whisper, switched to apple petal post-tea. Reaction logged. 2 compliments, 1 side eye, no exposure. You cap your pen and touch your bare cheek in the dim light. Cool now. Undisturbed. You remind yourself that true beauty doesn't need blush. But tomorrow, it will wear it anyway. Just less obviously. You wake to the sound of glass clinking. Your tonic bottles, lined neatly on your vanity, shifting slightly as Edith dusts them with her usual blend of caution and condescension. You don't blame her. Tinctures, tonics, and tiny lies are difficult things to clean around. Today, you've decided to try a new one. A bay leaf infusion rumored to restore glow to the dull and disposition to the dim. It arrived wrapped in brown paper and scented like regretful tea. You're not sure if you're supposed to drink it, inhale it, or bathe in it, but you choose to sip it from your smallest cup, the one with a chip no one mentions. It tastes assertive, like boiled optimism and wallpaper. But you finish it, because glowing women don't gag. You follow it with your usual rosehip cordial, which at least tastes like something a poet might drink during heartbreak. The combination isn't pleasant, but your pulse is slightly faster now, which you decide must mean circulation. And circulation means color, and color means attention, and attention, carefully managed, is the fertilizer of glow. Historians still argue whether Victorian women genuinely believed these tonics improved their appearance, or if they were simply part of the performance. But whether real or placebo, the ritual itself always delivered one thing: control. You examine your face in the mirror. You look mildly flushed, possibly from the bay leaf, possibly from internal rebellion. Either way, it's progress. You move on to your dropper collection. Tiny bottles labeled with promises. Complexion elixir, Elon drops, saffron tincture for the listless soul. Some you've never dared try. One made you hallucinate a suitor in your bed curtains. That bottle now waters the fern. Today, you choose celandine extract, described by its creator as a solution for the slightly sunken. You apply 3 drops under your tongue, let it burn for precisely 6 seconds, then chase it with a peppermint lozenge. It feels like ambition melting behind your teeth. Your maid enters to deliver the morning paper and nearly recoils at the scent of crushed root and bitter citrus wafting from your cup. You assure her it's reviving. She says nothing and sets down a note from your cousin Beatrice, who claims she's discovered willow bark concentrate and now glows without guilt. You raise a skeptical brow. You know Beatrice. She glows because she's in love with her apothecary. Before you dress, you add a final layer to your skincare. Milk of poppy and mint cream. It does nothing, you suspect, but it smells like dreams and denial, and that's enough. Then, with lips barely flushed from a beet-stained toothpick, you glide into your morning routine, every inch of you humming faintly with infused possibility. Later, during your embroidery hour, Clara remarks, "You look recharged." You reply, "Bay leaf and celandine," as if describing a breeze you accidentally walked through. She nods, writes it down. Another woman may try it. Another batch of glow will be brewed. The cycle continues. That evening, you curl up with your glow journal, recording today's findings. June 8th, bay leaf infusion. Aggressive but promising. Celandine drops. Alarming, yet productive. Overall vibe. Revived ghost of a wiser woman. Before sleep, you organize your tonics by potency, tucking the more volatile ones behind the box labeled letters I never sent. You dab a bit of peppermint on your temples, sip a final mouthful of watered-down rose cordial, and lie down with your jaw slightly unhinged. Relaxation is the final ingredient. You drift off with the taste of secrets and sap on your tongue. Tomorrow you'll lie again, but beautifully. The opera is tonight, which means only one thing. Social peacocking at full candlelight. You don't go for the music. You go for the flicker, for the delicate glow that licks the cheekbone when the gaslights dim just enough to forgive imperfection and reward shimmer. Your day is structured entirely around strategic preparation. You begin at dawn, not with movement, but with stillness. 10 full minutes of absolute facial neutrality. You lie flat, neck aligned, brows silent. You picture your skin settling into place like the surface of a pond after the last raindrop falls. Glow doesn't begin with application. It begins with inactivity. Then the layering begins. First, a base of glycerin and starch paste, applied cool with a silver spoon. Tightens, not like a corset, more like a suggestion that your pores should behave. Next, pressed pearl cream on the temples and across the upper cheek, where candlelight will catch it later. Not on the nose. Never the nose. That's where sweat hides. Historians still argue whether women of the time used lighting intentionally to enhance complexion, or whether they simply learned to survive it. Either way, every woman in that opera box is planning tonight's angle like a general mapping terrain. You apply eyelid tint, the softest shadow made from crushed violet petals and a hint of soot. Your lashes remain light, barely dusted with rice flour. Too much and you'll reflect light unnaturally. Too little and you'll look awake. Neither is acceptable. Edith laces you into your gown slowly. Tonight, seafoam satin with a high collar and discreet embroidery. You request the rose sachet tucked into your corset. Not for fragrance, but to emit a delicate warmth that will bring just enough color to your cheeks without triggering any expression. As the carriage takes you through London's lamplit streets, you practice your mirror glance, the sideways, lowered gaze that suggests intelligence and apathy. You pass one storefront and catch your reflection, perfect the opera house. The air is thick with perfume and ambition. Velvet muffles conversation. Every woman is seated like a question, waiting to be answered. You take your place in the family box and allow your expression to settle into its most effective pose. Vaguely interested, Lord Ashworth is seated across from you, 2 boxes over. You see him lean toward his companion and murmur something. Her eyes flick toward you. You pretend not to notice. You're inspecting the chandelier. Your cheek is turned just so. Light hits the pearl cream. You look luminescent, possibly aloof, possibly divined. At it doesn't matter what he said, you've already won. Between acts, you sip orange blossom water from a flask disguised as a fan handle. It's refreshing and faintly sweet, a flavor that lingers on the breath just long enough for admirers to think. She tastes like restraint. You do not smile. but you do allow the corner of your mouth to lift slightly when someone stumbles with their gloves. That's enough scandal for the evening. At home, you remove the layers slowly, like peeling back the hours. The pearl cream has held. The glycerin base needs rebalancing. You blot with barley water, not rose. Rose would clash with the sweat of victory. Your Glow journal entry reads, June 9th, Opera Box success. Light placement flawless. No visible sweating. Lord Ashworth observed. Rose sachet confirmed as effective blush enhancer. You close the journal with a sense of completion. Not joy, not pride, just glow continuity. As you slide beneath your sheets, still faintly powdered, you wonder who else will try to replicate tonight's look. They won't succeed. Not unless they also drank orange blossoms and silenced every muscle in their face for 5 hours straight. Good luck to them. You were warned, of course. The society newsletters called it electrical elegance. The salons whispered of charged renewal. But no one told you what it would feel like to strap your face into a buzzing brass contraption that smells like rain and ambition. Tonight, you try electricity. More precisely, a galvanic beauty mask. It arrives in a velvet-lined box, hand-delivered from a cousin's friend's apothecary who insists this is the future. He said it stimulates the dermis with currents of refinement. You believed him. You always do until the tingling begins. You unwrap the device slowly. It's heavy. 2 metal plates, wires trailing from each, and a small knob that hums when touched. The instruction card reads, to encourage blood flow, discourage sagging, and silence worry lines. Ply with optimism. Avoid thunderstorms. You cleanse your face with witch hazel and cool tea. Then settle into your chair, hair pinned back, neckline bare. You fasten the mask's damp leather straps around your forehead, under your chin, across the cheeks. You look like a very elegant villain. You turn the dial. Nothing. Then, a buzz, faint, fizzing, like soda water had a philosophical disagreement with your skin. Historians still argue whether these galvanic treatments had any measurable effects, or whether Victorian women were simply willing to endure mild electrocution for the idea of smoothness. What's clear is that once electricity entered the beauty scene, silence became optional. Now your pores had opinions, and they vibrated. You sit still for 10 minutes, then 15. Your cheek twitches. You feel your earlobe tighten, as if preparing for polite conversation. Edith peeks in, sees the mask, and drops a tray. You don't flinch. Movement could shift the current. By minute 20, your jaw is buzzing and your skin feels like it's listening. You aren't glowing yet. You're charging. You remove the mask with care. Your face is red, tingling, and slightly damp. You press a cloth of rice water and crushed ivy against your skin to calm the chaos. As the manual suggests, then, the mirror. You look radiant in a panicked, just summoned lightning sort of way. But beneath the flush, your skin does appear tighter. Your left eyebrow sits a little higher. Your cheekbones seem to have formed new boundaries. You look awake, which isn't always desirable, but tonight it works. Your Glow journal receives an urgent entry. June 10th, first electrical application. Facial twitching tolerable. Glow high voltage. We'll trial again with supervision. You follow up with a soft application of lavender cream, the one meant for post-sun, post-tears, and now, post-electricity. As you tuck yourself into bed, you feel an odd comfort in your skin's humming stillness. It's as if your face is remembering something, or preparing to forget everything. Either way, it's under control. You close your eyes, and in the dark, faintly buzzing, you sleep like a light bulb. This afternoon, you're heading to a spa, but not the kind with lemon water and harp music. No, this spa is located in a place more infamous than indulgent. Bedlam. Yes, that Bedlam. The institution once known for chaos and whispers, now allegedly reinvented as a retreat for the aesthetically unwell. You've been promised a mineral mud application and quieting steam. What you actually receive is closer to a damp sermon whispered through fog. Still, you're here for the glow. You arrive with your face freshly powdered, eyes shadowed lightly in lavender chalk. You wear your second-best bonnet, the one that says, I might be eccentric, but politely, and gloves you're willing to sacrifice to salt deposits. The attendants lead you past echoing halls and into a tiled room filled with the scent of boiled nettles and reluctant hope. The mud is already prepared, dark, warm, flecked with herbs you recognize from your cousin's panic tea blend. You sit, disrobed to your chemise, and allow a quiet nurse named Mrs. Fawn to apply the paste to your arms, neck, and most notably, your face. It's cold at first, then warm, then cold again. You say nothing. Victorian beauty is, above all, about composure under contradiction. Historians still argue whether the wellness treatments offered at institutions like this were truly cosmetic or if they were designed to distract restless upper-class women from screaming into the void. But either way, glowing in the shadow of Bedlam holds its own appeal. As the mud sets, you are instructed to sit in a steam box. Just your head protrudes, bonnet removed, expression intact. Inside, your body is enveloped by warmth and a faint hiss that sounds like the walls exhaling. You sit for 20 minutes. It feels like 5 hours and also 17 seconds. Steam beads on your nose. You do not wipe it. Movement is unnecessary. The glow is building. You think of Lady Ashcroft, who once said that true beauty blooms under pressure. You believe her. Her jawline hasn't moved since 1872 after the steam. You're rinsed, quickly, firmly, by a woman who hums only in minor keys. The water is mineral-rich and cold enough to make your shoulder blades contemplate divorce. Once dry, you're given a rosehip compress for your eyes and a porcelain cup of lemon balm broth. You drink slowly, hoping it doesn't undo the firming achieved by dehydration. Back in the changing room, you reapply only rice powder and a smile that doesn't reach your temples. Your cheeks are flushed, not from rouge but from reclamation. Bedlam has made you newer, not whole exactly, but polished. Edith meets you outside and says nothing about the smell of fermented thyme clinging to your shawl. She just nods, eyes briefly widening at your post-spa clarity. You ride home in silence, face turned toward the window, letting the breeze lift your veil and your spirits. That night, you write in your glow journal. June 11th, Bedlam Spa. Mud unsettling but effective. Steam box unsettling but effective. Overall, serenity with a side of unspoken trauma. Repeat only under emotional duress or extreme pallor. You lie in bed, skin taut, pores confused, soul freshly wrung, and as sleep overtakes you, you think, maybe madness isn't required for beauty, but it certainly doesn't hurt. You begin the morning with your mouth closed, not out of modesty or silence, but because you haven't yet tended to your teeth. And in the grand constellation of Victorian beauty, what glows more dangerously than a smile? Today's focus: tooth powder and tongue scrapers. Yes, your glow extends beyond your cheeks. It lurks behind the lips too. You sit at your wash basin, lifting the small tin marked Poudre Dentale Mint of Dover, with a seriousness usually reserved for inheritance discussions. Inside is a fine, chalky powder, the color of regret and the scent of crushed mint leaves left too long in a drawer. You dip your dry brush, made from boar bristles and possibly guilt, into the powder and begin the ritual. The taste is sharp, earthy, and faintly metallic. You scrub gently, not because your teeth are fragile, but because aggression causes gum recession, and gum recession is a scandal no one wants to explain. Historians still argue whether Victorian dental care was more hygiene or performance. Certainly, the powders varied wildly in content. Some safe, some, let's say, bravery-enhancing. Today's blend claims to contain salt, baking soda, powdered charcoal, and essence of civility. You're not sure what that last part is, but you hope it's peppermint. You finish brushing, rinse with rose water and vinegar, no really, and inspect your teeth in the hand mirror. They don't sparkle. Sparkling is gauche, but they are softly matte, with just enough polish to imply that you've never eaten an apple without cutting it first. Now comes the tongue scraper. A delicate, slightly terrifying hook of polished brass. You run it gently across the surface of your tongue, from back to front, removing the invisible fog of yesterday's restraint. It leaves a cool trail and the feeling of starting over. You dab the corners of your mouth with a mint leaf compress and allow your face to settle. The glow now includes the illusion of fresh breath. Before dressing, you chew a clove for good measure, then hide 2 more in your reticule. Cloves are the Victorian woman's insurance policy. They freshen breath, calm nerves, and if necessary, can be weaponized in polite conversation. Midday, during a call with your Aunt Eugenia, you speak sparingly but smile often. Not a grin. Never that. Just a delicate flash of ivory when the moment demands grace. She compliments your restraint. You note the irony in silence. Later, Clara visits with a new imported tooth elixir from France. It's lilac-flavored. You smell it and suppress a shudder. You tell her it's brave. She doesn't take offense. That's the problem with Clara. She's immune to implication as the day winds down. You freshen once more with a rinse of cooled green tea and powdered sage. Then you complete the final step. Lip-cold cream, dabbed along the edges to soften any lines of experience. Your lips are not meant to tell stories, only carry light. That night, in your glow journal, June 12th, teeth powdered. Tongue, clarified. Smile, measured. Inner glow aligned with outer hush. You blow out the candle, lips pressed gently together in eternal suggestion. Your dreams are minty and vague. And somewhere in the shadows of your subconscious, you scrape again. For perfection. You hold the feather fan before your face, not for heat, not even for flirtation, but for the most ancient, most sacred Victorian reason of all, illusion. Tonight, you attend a formal gathering at Lady Winsworth's, and your goal is simple, to be seen only strategically. Feathered fans, like modesty, are tools of tactical concealment. What cannot be perfected must be obscured, and ideally, obscured with style. Your fan is ostrich, cream-colored, lightly scented with clove, and wide enough to cover both cheeks should the candlelight betray you. You've practiced its choreography. Lift, flutter, angle, drop. Each motion means something. Each flutter a syllable in a language where beauty whispers but never begs. But before you fan, you glow. You begin your preparations that afternoon with a mask of egg white and rose vinegar, painted on with a swan feather brush while you lie flat on your chaise, eyes closed, mind blank. The mask tightens as it dries, turning your face into a delicate porcelain plate. Fragile, expensive, and not meant for frequent use. Once peeled, carefully with no expression, you pat on a cooling gel made from crushed cucumber seeds and whispered apologies. It smells faintly of decisions you didn't make. You blot with a linen square, then begin your base. Tonight calls for a glow that can survive scrutiny. You apply a thin layer of silk powder, followed by a dot of geranium cream at the tops of your cheeks, rubbed in with the back of a chilled spoon. The result: effortless precision. Historians still argue whether Victorian beauty was a celebration of self or a campaign of camouflage. You suspect it was both. You are, after all, hiding in plain sight. By the time you arrive at the gathering, your fan is already open. You descend the stairs like a rumor, your face appearing only in slivers. Framed in feathers and shadow, Lord Fletcher approaches and offers a compliment. Something vague about the moon and roses. You laugh once, behind the fan. The sound escapes like perfume. He cannot tell what color your lips are. That's by design. Throughout the evening, you sip lemon cordial, feign interest in a discussion about wallpaper trends, and adjust your fan precisely when someone looks too closely. The left cheek, your slightly bolder side, remains mostly hidden. The right cheek, powdered and angled to perfection, handles all appearances. Someone whispers, "She glows." Someone else asks, "What is she hiding?" You answer neither. Later, by the fire, Lady Winsworth leans in and murmurs, "I admire your restraint." You reply, "It's mostly the fan," and smile just enough to make her wonder if you're joking at home. You undress slowly, removing each layer of fabric and facade. You clean your face with orange blossom milk, the scent warm and familiar. Your cheeks are slightly flushed from holding still too long, but that's a small price. You place the fan on your vanity and run your hand along its edge. Soft, unyielding, mysterious. Like your glow. You note in your journal, June 13th, success via concealment. Fan choreography flawless. No full face exposure. Glow preserved through curation. You extinguish the candle, lips pressed in feathered satisfaction, and sleep. You dream of rooms where everyone speaks in fans and no one ever says a word. The house is quiet now. Dinner has ended, the guests have gone, and the gaslights flicker softly, casting long shadows across the parlor floor. You sit in your chair, not collapsed, never slouched, but poised, glowing from the faint heat of subtle triumph. Tonight you mastered a difficult art, the glow of getting away with it. The evening was full of conversation, yes, but none of it about you. And that is how you know you won. You've learned that true Victorian brilliance isn't in the spectacle, but in the slipstream, where you move gracefully through rooms, a blur of radiance and restraint, noticed only in whispers. Your day began with powdered restraint. No new treatments, no daring tints, no electric pulses. Just quiet care. A glycerin and barley water mask, a rub of violet wax on your lips, and your usual touch of pearl powder. Barely anything. You looked unfinished on purpose. Clara had said, "You look undone today," and you'd replied, "That's the point." Because some days the glow comes not from application, but omission. From knowing when to show and when to withhold. Historians still argue whether Victorian women had agency in their beauty choices or were merely playing prescribed roles. But you've come to understand, even within the script you hold the pen. You decide when the light hits you, and when it misses entirely. At the garden party, you said very little. You let others sparkle, stutter, brag. You simply existed. Occasionally you offered a single look. One turn of the cheek. One sip of lemon water, followed by a stillness that suggested mystery. Someone asked where you'd had your complexion done. You smiled and said, "I just slept well." You hadn't, but the lie made them blink. Throughout the day, you navigated glances and remarks with the elegance of someone who glows in private. You said nothing of the cold compress behind your knees or the mint powder dabbed beneath your ears. These things are not meant to be spoken of. They are meant to work. When a woman glows, people imagine luck, good breeding, water. Let them. The truth is barley cream at dawn. It's vinegar on Tuesday. It's not laughing when the moment demands it. It's years of knowing which mirror tells the kinder lie. Tonight, you pull off your gloves slowly, fingertip by fingertip, and lay them on the vanity. The skin beneath is smooth, pliable. You apply a faint layer of elderflower oil and let your hands rest. Curled, relaxed, symbolic. Edith enters with a warm cloth. You press it against your cheeks and feel everything you've done today soften. Powder melting, mask dissolving, effort fading. But the glow, it stays. You sit for a while in the silence, candlelight tracing the high points of your cheekbones like it's signing off on a job well done. Then you write, one line only, in your glow journal. June 14th said nothing. Revealed less, glowed more. You close the journal, blow out the light, and slip into sleep knowing that your finest achievement today was not what you showed, but what you let them imagine. There it is again, that moment at the end of the day where you return, as always, to the face in the mirror. You lean in gently, never too close, and study the skin you've curated, coddled, and camouflaged across a symphony of hours, creams, brushes, and quiet decisions. This is not vanity. This is reconciliation. You take a slow breath. The rouge is gone, wiped away with rosewater and folded linen. The powder has faded. Your lips are bare, but soft. Your eyebrows are still obedient. And your eyes, they do not sparkle. They rest. And yet, they glow. You reach for your final ritual of the evening. A few drops of marshmallow root oil, warmed between your palms, then pressed gently across your cheeks and brow like a benediction. It smells like dusk, sweet, muted, a little sleepy. It's the scent of surrender. Historians still argue whether women like you believed all this effort truly stopped time, or if you simply learned how to choreograph it. You've stopped wondering. You know now. The glow isn't about turning back the clock. It's about making it watch you, quietly. You take one last pass with your cold jade roller, just to calm any final rebellion beneath the skin. There's no pain, only preparation. Glow, after all, is what's left when you've silenced the day. You look again, not for imperfections, not for lines, but for what remains when all the potions have been shelved and the fan is folded away. What's left is you, softer than at sunrise, a little undone, but unmistakably yours. You lie back on the bed, neck long, shoulders relaxed, jaw unhinged in the most dignified way possible. The candle flickers. The window is barely cracked. The night exhales around you, and you let go. The day has slipped behind you now. Its quiet efforts, every dab, every brushstroke, every practiced silence, have folded themselves into your skin like old love letters. There's nothing left to apply, nothing left to adjust. You've earned your stillness. Outside, the city sleeps in fragments. A distant carriage wheel, the rustle of ivy on brick, a cat slipping between railings like a rumor. Inside, everything is soft. The sheets cool against your wrists. The air, barely scented with elderflower and endings, your face, once held like glass, begins to melt into the comfort of no longer being seen. No expectations, no angles, just breath and skin and the quiet hum beneath it all. The mirror is dark now. You've turned it away. You know how you look. You know how you feel. Weightless, restored, yours. Let your limbs go slack. Let your thoughts drift to slower things. The sound of a kettle, the softness of starch on lace, the gentle, absurd belief that snail cream might actually love you back. You do not need to try anymore. Your skin remembers everything. Your glow will still be there tomorrow. And tonight it's enough to rest, enough to be still, enough to be.